before you do that, can I just mention something to him? I think so. Okay. Oh, no, Melissa, I think you need to leave it on. Melissa, I think you need to leave it on. Okay. All right, we're going to get started, folks. This is the September 19th Board of Appeal hearing for the City of Malden. And to my board members, as I mentioned, I want to start to get a little consistent on handling of the minutes. So I did send out to all you folks copies of the proposed minutes from last month. I did not hear of any current concerns, corrections, whatnot. So unless there are, I would ask if we could approve the minutes from last month, which was our August 15th hearing.
I actually have a correction.
Okay. Sure.
Oh, thank you. It's on page 3 for AT&T. It's saying that the statutory notices that have met the petitions before the board. I think AT&T didn't meet all the requirements. I think that's why they're here today.
That's why they're here tonight.
I guess we should probably strike that line.
Just delete that?
Yeah, yep. That would be my vote.
Okay. Anything else, Adam?
No.
Okay. And anyone else? John, Dino, Bill? Okay. So then I would ask if we could accept the minutes subject to that one correction that Adam had made. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, thank you. And we'll get on with tonight's meeting. There's 3 petitions before us, and I'd like to start with AT&T. Is it Anna? Yes. Okay. So Anna, what we're going to do is I'm going to read an ad, a legal notice, I should say, and then ask you to give a summary of what's being proposed and whatnot. And also on the advertising, I didn't see it in the local. Did you advertise in the Globe and Herald?
No, it should have been in the local. It was like a week before the first due date. But I did make sure it went through the 2 rounds. I can see if I have.
I follow this pretty closely. I follow this pretty closely. I didn't see your ad. So we have we have a local, we have 2 papers in the city. Unfortunately, they only publish on Fridays. So if you're going to go that route using those mediums, that's fine. If not, we suggest the Globe and the Herald because they're a daily. I mean, you're welcome to look at these. I don't see the ad in here for AT&T. The ad telling the world that there's a public hearing here tonight.
Yeah, all
So
right.
do you have a copy in front of you that you can show me?
I know the ad. Let me see here.
I have the Advocate here, not the Observer. Did you use the Advocate or the Observer?
No, it should have been the Advocate.
Yeah, that's what I have here. I have the Friday, August 31st edition and the Friday, September 7th, which these two other folks advertised in. You know what? If you want, I can move on with one of the other hearings and
Is it this?
let's see what you got. Because last month, weren't you going in the Boston papers? You had called me. And,
It was like the deadline.
right, there was a day before or something?
Now, since I was supposed to go in August, but I was a day late.
Yeah.
Since we did the September one, I just went with the local.
Local, because they're a little more affordable. Okay.
And then I do have an email saying he did move twice.
Oh, wait a minute, I apologize then. This is saying that you're in here. Okay. Kathy, it shows the two editions, and I'm going to give September 7th, I'm going to give, would you look through for AT&T, 321 Main Street? I have the 31st edition. And I guess I would suggest go through every page. They're usually in the rear, but we don't want to overlook them, and apparently I have. Main Street? Okay, my bad. My bad, Anna. Okay. All right, so let's read the legal ad. Would you like that back? That's hers. You can get it out of here. So this is the petition of AT&T, Anna Hulch from ProSign Graphics, I suspect, is requesting a variance of section 3.35.9.2.2.1, chapter 3 of the revised ordinances of 1991, as amended, of the City of Malden. Sign design control ordinances regulating the appearance, size, placement, and/or location of signs on residential, commercial, and/or industrial properties at the property known as 321-331 Main Street, Malden, which is also known by the city assessor's ID as parcel 075-271-105. This petition was before us last month, but again, there was a problem with the advertising, but we are timely for this evening. And this is the building that's situated on the corner of Main and Center Street. And this is Anna.
Yes. So what AT&T was looking to do is they currently have 3 signs. They're on Main Street, Center Street, so they have signs facing there. And then they have a sign directly above their main entrance, which is right on the corner, right in between those 2 streets. What they're asking to do is they're updating their logo nationwide. So they are now going from lowercase letters to uppercase letters. So spending millions of dollars, but that's what they want to do. The reason why we had to come in front of the board was because they are allowed 2 signs, because they are on those 2 streets, but we are asking for 3 signs, just because we want to update what's currently there, rather than taking one of them down.
Okay. Would any members have any questions, comments?
Are the signs going to be the same size as the prior signs?
The one above the main entrance, that one is going to be about 7 square feet smaller, because that one's a little bit too big, so we're making that a little smaller. And then the ones on the 2 streets, those ones are going from 12 square feet to 13 square feet. Not because of the lettering, but because of that logo, it's a little bit bigger.
So the side ones are bigger, the main one's smaller?
Yeah, those side ones are 1 square foot bigger, but the main one above the entrance is about 7 square feet smaller. So in general, they're smaller.
Anyone else, any questions or comments? I'll make one or two, I guess. So as I understand it, just looking at the ordinances, with the current zoning ordinances, the property's allowed, you're on a corner lot. So there's a little different interpretation when the property's on a corner. So it's my understanding that you can have one sign, it's Center and Main Street is the intersection. You can have one on the Center Street side and one on the Main Street side.
Yep.
Or if you choose to, you could have just one sign over the front door. And that's the current zoning. And do you know the signs that are up there today, how long they've been up there, approximately?
Oy, I
A
know
while?
I know it was before the bylaws were.
Right, and
so-
that's what I'm working towards here in this
Yeah, it was before the
conversation.
bylaws.
So there's been a change to the ordinances.
Yes.
And while it was allowed previously, it's not now. And given that you're taking down, that's what you're looking to do, take down the signs to put up a new and nice stuff, right?
Yeah, take down the ones and then
So what-
relocate.
My understanding is when you take those down, it kind of opens the door to being conforming with the current, which says you can only have the two. So I think that's the dilemma that's, we're faced with here. Do you know if the applicant would be amenable to just having the two?
I know we did discuss it, because if they went with the two, we could have went with just standard permitting, but he did want to ask the board if he could have the three.
Okay.
Just because he did want one over the main entrance.
Yeah.
And then also, if either you remove the two, he doesn't want nothing on the walls, because there's a lot of holes. Back in the day, when they did install these old channel letter sets, they drilled big, giant holes everywhere. We don't do that anymore, but he doesn't want to patch that up and have nothing there. He'd rather just replace it with a new updated sign.
Oh, okay.
Get close to the microphone.
Yeah, you're the bad boy, you gotta be close.
So how much is it, you explained that in the old days, they used to do big holes. So is that major work? I mean, is there going to be a lot of work, say, if you took down the two signs and just put up one over the entrance?
Yep, the one over the entrance, it would cover what was currently done before. It was the two on the sides, if we did remove those. I mean, they just drilled like 1-inch holes every foot before, so we would have to just fill that with silicone. We can try to paint it as close to a brick as possible, but because that's on the first floor, I mean, you can see
The
it.
landlord would allow that, or would he want you to cut the brick out and replace the brick?
I mean, I don't think and then that would be up to the landlord. We would personally fill it with silicone, but if the landlord wanted to cut the brick and replace it, I think that would be up to him and then his costs, not the tenant's
Have you
costs.
read his lease?
Yeah, I don't think it's in the lease, that part, but we haven't replaced the brick before. We've always just filled it with silicone if needed.
Yeah, that comment just reminded me of something. We usually like to know that and respect the rights of the owner of the real estate. Do you have something from the owners?
Yeah,
You do?
Yeah,
Okay.
not currently. I don't know if he signed, he might have signed that.
Something in our file that's saying that they're, okay, I
Yeah,
didn't see
we
that.
always do.
Okay, all right.
I mean, if you had to replace those, I mean, with gobs of silicone on them, I mean, that's gonna look worse than having 3 signs in the building. I don't know.
Well, I know that the property is probably located in one of the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Not premier, but most highly traveled intersections in the city. And, now to allow something on your property, you know, the next people coming in, that's what zoning's all about, to try to have conformity, you know? So I kind of have a concern about allowing it myself, but I'm only one board member, and I haven't heard any other comments other than John. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I'm generally looking at the non-conforming use part of the sign ordinance. And as far as I'm reading it, saying that the faces can be replaced, providing that they don't increase the dimension of the sign, they don't constitute a significant modification of the sign, and they don't increase the non-conformity of the sign.
So your interpretation is that the three that existed prior to this
Yeah.
could be replaced?
Yeah, as long as they didn't get any bigger. They didn't change. I mean, I think the design's basically the same. To
Okay.
me, it doesn't care. I think,
I may ask Mr. Miller, our zoning enforcement officer, to weigh in on that, in case there's a different interpretation. And I'm going to have this gentleman speak for a moment.
Yeah.
You're welcome to stay right there. Mr. Miller, could you weigh in on what Adam indicated? And if you wanted to read that back again, or the section?
it's section 3.35 dot 13.2.
Do you need this, LM?
No.
No, okay.
So that section of the sign design ordinance is relative to refacing. So in a separate section of the ordinance, it addresses what constitutes a major repair or a major change to a sign. If you have a box, a lighted box with a face on it, it says Joe's Diner, and you want to take that piece of plastic off and change it, update it, that's something that we would consider changing the face, a minor repair, and that's something that could be just approved or wouldn't even need approval, really. When you take the signs down, then you fall under the new ordinance. So once you remove the sign from the building, it no longer exists. You no longer have a sign, so now anything you put back on the building falls under the new regulations from last year.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No? All right, Anna, I'm going to, did you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, they just wanted to come in front of the board just to see if we can.
Okay.
It would be the best, but.
Sure.
So this sign is basically like new technology in the sense of the way you put it up and the way
We're
it's
using
constructed?
the LED lighting rather than fluorescent. We don't even use like the fluorescent anymore. So LED, new timer, and then the way that we put it on there, we will still patch up the old holes because we wouldn't just put new ones in just because it's structurally not safe. But the way that you do use that, and I did drive by the signs earlier, and you can tell the Lexan that they use, which is the face of it, it's a little worn down. It almost gets like a yellow hue to it. So it's just all new material. It's UV radiation against it so that it doesn't fade as fast. So it is new technology. But the major difference here really is that they just have to change it to the uppercase so that their brand recognition nationwide can be seen.
Yeah, see, I mean, okay, thank you. But this is, because I think non-conforming, a use, this is as pretty close as you can get to just replacing, in a sense, the face. It's not a face, but it's because of the design of the sign where it's freestanding lettering. I mean, they're making changes now that make it more, modern materials, modern everything. I find it would probably look better on the building, and the building would be in better condition having the three signs that they have now that people have been used to seeing in Malden, and making that change and then having gobs of silicone pockmarking the building. I don't know. I mean, that section that you read off, I mean, it does seem that they do talk up, they do talk about that they're non-conforming, and if we look at the regular zoning, I mean, any non-conforming use that is the grandfathering in of those things is fairly, it's fairly clear, and they're not, they're not increasing any violation of the nonconformance that they have. In fact, they're decreasing it by making the sign smaller to some extent. So, I mean, we got less of a violation. The square footage is gonna be smaller.
Yeah. I think it comes down to whether there's 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Whether they're pink, blue, and how big they
But
are.
they're both, again, they were legal when done, they're non-conforming now, and, you know, a lot of times we approve non-conforming uses that are grandfathered in. I mean, that's part of what happens if it's not an increase in violation.
I think going, and I think I took this from what Nelson said, and I looked this over a little close, just when he said that, but I think that exception does come into play when they're being repainted or repaired versus here where they're really just being replaced. And I don't think that, until he said that, it didn't really make sense to me. So I actually don't think that would apply here. I think it would be, they would have to fall. So we would need some sort of, something under the variance requirements would have to tell us that, would have to let us, I think, say that there should be 3 versus 2. And I don't.
You know, is that almost kind of analogous to over on the real estate side, when folks do work, we renovate the kitchen and whatnot, that because of the scope of extent of what they're doing, they then have to address and upgrade the fuses to circuit breakers. And, you know what I mean? Other things kick in. I mean, Nelson could probably tell us there's probably some intention with mass building codes. It's a way to get folks to upgrade their properties. You know.
I see where he's coming from now. So I think, I don't think there's a grandfather provision necessarily when they're trying to put in a new sign. I think the question for us is there a particular hardship that says there should be 2 versus 3? And I think what John was getting at was saying that maybe the hardship is from the actual residue of the building, maybe, if that you're saying once they're taken down, they're going to be kind of in that, they're not going to look good based on that necessary repair.
Okay.
If I understood what you were saying correctly.
Yeah, especially if they do they may do the 2 signs rather than just the 1, and then right over their entrance as you're walking in the store is however many 1-inch
It's
holes.
not that, I mean, we don't do too bad, but if they do the 2 signs, there won't be a sign above their main entrance, which, I don't know how many customers are reoccurring and stuff, but if that's what they're used to seeing, where the 2 signs would be, if we did go with the 2 signs, they would just be over windows. They wouldn't be over the main entrance.
Going to open it up to a public hearing. The letter from I'd like to read into the record the letter from the landlord. Did you see it in your package?
I did see it, yeah.
Could we make reference to that? Could I read it in? If you want to, Anna, just sit nearby here and we're going to open it up. I don't think it's going to take too long here. We'll be having you back.
This is at,
Okay, could I take a
peek?
peek at that? So we're going to open the public hearing, and we'll first ask if there's anyone here that is looking to speak in support of the variance being granted. And hearing and seeing none, I will read that the landlord of the property, which is Combined Properties.
I was very slow to start walking up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan. All right.
I wasn't previously planning on speaking in favor or opposed. It's not in Ryan O'Malley, Ward 4, City Councilor. It's not in Ward 4. It's directly across the street, I believe, in Ward 1. You can see it from Ward 4, so my residents are slightly impacted. The only thing I would say here is that we want to be careful, basically what you were saying, that we don't have a circumstance like Yong Yong. Yong Yong had to have one of their signs removed, and now we have kind of a dilapidated looking sign on a very busy road. So the only thing I'd want to avoid here is something where it just looks janky. So if that means allowing them to replace the signs in the same dimensions that they have right now with the new technology that has LEDs, it's more energy efficient, I would say that's a good idea. I just don't want another repeat of Yong Yong.
That property you're referencing, where is that?
Yong Yong is on Ferry Street, and it's directly next to the bike path. It's a hot pot place.
I I know what you mean.
So they have one sign on Ferry. They had
one on
one
Center.
on the other side that abuts the parking lot and the bike path, but it was ruled that that's not considered a corner lot, even though it kind of abuts an easement. So they were forced to take down one of their main signs, and it just kind of looks bad. So I'd like to avoid something like that.
Okay, so you'd be in support of?
I'd be in support if that's what's going to end up happening.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. That was Ryan. Okay, and the landlord is giving their approval for what the tenant is proposing to do, and that would be combined properties. They've signed off here. As owner, manager of the property, we hereby approve the proposed sign as shown on the attached plans. And Mr. Richard Gray from the Combined Properties firm. Anyone else to speak in favor? Hearing and seeing none. Would there be anyone here to speak in opposition? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close that portion of the hearing. And John, you still have a light on, and Adam does, but did you folks have any more comments?
No.
No? Would anyone like to make a motion? It's not Hanlon's now, it's AT&T.
It's 18. I'd like to make some motion that we, in this case, that we grant the variance based on the fact that what they're doing is, although technically, replacing the signs, that they're not making any major alterations to what is there.
Okay, so no condition that you're looking to link in there, just,
No, something else could, I mean, they said that they're going to be repairing, I think in their application, they'll be repairing the walls and things.
okay. Would there be a second? I'll second. All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and I'll say aye. So we have a vote of 5-0 approving the variance. There's a little appeal season, time frame, 2 weeks or so. Our city clerk is where you'd want to be communicating with. We have to write a decision and post it, and so it plays out over a couple weeks. But call our city clerk to see where you're at on that. Or you could call me as well. Okay?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I just had a quick, just so I can get the board.
Yeah, I'm going to be writing a decision, I know, so.
Yeah, so the hardship, are we saying, are you saying that the residue that's left over, or are we saying the actually shape of the building itself?
I think some of it has to do with the shape of the building and the visibility, and they also, that removing one of those, one of the signs, I think would affect them financially. There would be at a greater expense for them to do that. After the city
Less marketing exposure because of the lack of a sign?
Yep.
That is Route 60, it's a busy thoroughfare there. All right, Adam?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All set, Anna? All right, and we're going to do the Main Street property, Sunny, right? And give me a minute, but come on up.
Okay.
Did you have anything to hand me?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you do that? Great, beautiful. Okay, yep, and I did see you in the paper, so if you want, you can keep them, and I do have them, I'll take them. Okay. So what we'll do is just, you're going to go back to the podium, I'm going to read the ad, and then you're going to give a little synopsis of what you're doing. The board may have some questions.
Okay.
3 of us visited today, but 2 gentlemen did not. So give me a moment. All right, what do I got here? Yeah, he just brought them up. And I had them. Those I did see in the paper. Can't believe I didn't see the AT&T ones. What I could use as an ad, is that one? It is, okay. So this is the public hearing for the petition of Mr. Sonny Moy requesting a variance of section 400.1.2.1, chapter 12 of the revised ordinances of 1991 as amended of the city of Malden. Dimensional controls for a single-family dwelling, namely to construct an addition, which is a continuation of the existing home, and it does violate side yard setback requirements of single-family dwellings, and as per the plans at the property known as in number 755 Main Street, Malden, also known by the assessor's parcel ID of map 71, block 824, parcel 443. Mr. Moy is a single-family residence in Residence A, right across from Cappy's, and we visited there today, and you're looking to do an addition, correct?
Yes.
And tell us about it.
Actually, I just get addition on the driver's side, but now I try to do something on the back of the bigger kitchen. It's a little too small, so I just want to be. And also, my foundation is like it's a fieldstone foundation. Every time we get a big rain, I get like waters come out in the backside. So that's why I want to do the little foundation, the force floor foundation, and so stop the rain for a little bit to help. So that's why I try to do like extend the 6 feet out from my backyard to make the kitchen a little bigger, and also so trying to finish the second level to make the big room a little bigger. So also I'll be asked my neighbors, Richard Peter, and told him what to do. He says okay because the last addition when does anybody's, it's okay. I'm doing a good job on that. The people say it's good. So.
Is that water coming in through the existing bulkhead or,
Yes.
or the foundation?
Yes, yeah, bulkhead, yeah, because
Bulkhead.
Yes, yeah, fieldstone foundation. So it's the rain from the.
Yeah. And that's an area on the first floor is to expand the kitchen?
Yeah.
And on the second floor,
Yeah,
make a new room or
No,
expand
just,
an existing?
Expand the
An
bedroom,
existing?
bedroom bigger.
How many bedrooms are up there now?
2 bedroom.
Just two?
Yes.
Okay. And you hiring someone to do the work, or?
Yes, I
Yeah.
had people do the work.
Looked like you had a lot of materials there today, so I thought maybe you were doing some.
I get from the next project because I do the right away, but with the money wise, I can put off a little bit.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Any questions, comments from the board? Hold on, John. Go ahead. Show Kathy. Okay.
All right, so you're going to be adding a foundation area under the back?
Yeah.
Right? It'll be concrete or a concrete block?
Yes, I try to force 4 feet force wall, and take it down, and the crossing space on the bottom. So and try to be help the water.
Okay, and the siding will be the same as on the rest of the house?
Yes.
And what was the other thing? All right, now, I think you have to know, I believe you're going to have to talk to the fire department with this too.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm gonna talk to him. Yeah,
You've already talked to them?
in the morning, a little bit.
In
Yeah,
regard to,
Well, because they're doing, because they'll be doing
Yes.
working on a bedroom. So he has to change smoke. Once they do that, they have to upgrade.
okay, I thought you were going in a different area. You're talking about the smokes?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're going to have to do. So that it's going to be in the same line as the rest of the house. It's not going
Right,
to be
right.
expanded just going back a little bit.
Yes.
And, all right.
The amount of the violation that exists today will continue. It's 3.2 or 3.3.
Yeah, 3.3.
From the neighbor who we're going
Yes.
to reference in a moment, his property line.
Right. So
Right.
I do stop on the house and talk to him and
Good.
show him the property and everything.
So the addition's going back, and there's no setback issue. He's got
Way back.
a big land in the back there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can.
It's just the side yard.
Yeah.
Bill, did you have a question? You got a lit light there? Oh, no, okay. Anything else? Dino, John, Adam? No? Okay, Sonny, we'll open up for public, to see
Okay.
if anyone wants to participate. We do have a letter, you can have a seat. We do have a letter from not only a neighbor, but a direct abutter where the violation is, and that's a Mr. Peter Petruzzi, help me there, Petruzio, your neighbor. You're at 755, correct? Yep, this is the neighbor at 757, and he indicates that he's aware that Mr. Moy is looking to construct an addition at the side of the property line to my backyard. It starts from the south to the west of the existing dwelling, about 6 feet to my backyard through the second floor level. Here is the proposed addition. If you agree with this proposal, please. All right, so this was actually drafted by you. Is that his signature?
My signature and his signature.
No, is that his signature?
Yes.
Because you drafted this. I realize as I'm reading it, I thought it was from him. Okay, but he signed it and read it? Okay, all right, fine. All right, so it appears that the neighbor is in support of this. And anyone else? I see Councilor O'Malley.
Hello again, Ryan O'Malley, Ward 4 City Councilor. I actually live diagonally across the street from this parcel. I do know that the work that has been done on the building or on the home so far has been top-notch. I don't think that there would be any reason to believe that the work that is being proposed tonight would be any less quality. Considering that the abutter is also in favor of this, I can also speak in favor of it, and I urge your granting of the variance. Thank you very much.
And just to add to that, Counselor, one of the first things I look at in these cases is the permit history. And happy to say that this gentleman is, he's had about 6 or 7 different permits with the, he's communicating to the city, which is what we like.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak in favor? Hearing and seeing none. Anyone here to speak in opposition to the proposal, the variance being granted? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close that portion of the hearing and would ask if any member would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
And we didn't hear anything on hardship, though, did we?
Well, I actually was going to get to that. I actually
Okay.
don't think we need a variant. I don't think he needs a variance. He's a non-conforming use. He's a single residence. I think that he's not increasing the non-conformity. He's not actually, I think he's not, the setback isn't changing. So I actually think he has a right, he can do it as of right. I don't think we have to give him a
Yeah,
variance.
but wouldn't he be, why would he be before us if he could do it by right? Mr. Miller?
Well, I think we have to give him a special permit. We have to approve a special
Which is,
permit.
we're not the special
Oh,
permit
really?
granting authority.
Section 700 of the zoning ordinance states that any change to an existing non-conforming use or structure requires a variance for any structural change, use change, addition, anything like that. So although it's not creating a new violation of a side yard setback, it is extending an existing violation. So it would require a variance from the Board of Appeals.
Any comment on Adam's thought about the special permit?
It's not a special permit situation.
Okay, and that does vary from municipality to municipality, correct?
That does change from city to
Yeah,
town.
as
yeah.
to who the granting authority is and whether it's required.
Right, variances for dimensional controls of existing structures go through the Board of Appeals. Special permits for dimensional controls for new buildings would go to the,
Planning board.
planning board.
Yeah, okay. All right, Adam?
Okay.
All right, so would anyone like to make a motion?
I motion to approve it.
Okay, and would there be a second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. So the variance is granted, 5-0, and some paperwork and city clerk is where you'll, communicate going forward. Okay, Sonny? Yes. All right, thank you. And we'll do Mings for the wrap up the evening. And I just need a minute. I thought I heard Adam saying he was seconding, but Dino, you said second, right? Yeah. Great? Yeah. Hi, Pat. All right. Yes. And I have those. So this is, can I have your answer? Right, so the final hearing tonight is for Ming's Seafood Restaurant, Inc. And this is a request for a variance by Ming's Seafood Restaurant, Inc. Attorney Pat McDonald is here on behalf of them, and the applicant is seeking a variance of section 3.35.9.2.2.1, which is Chapter 3 of the revised ordinances of 1991, as amended of the City of Malden, sign design control ordinances regulating the appearance, size, placement, and/or location of signs on residential, commercial, or industrial properties at the property known as a numbered 15-23 Pleasant Street, Malden, also known by the City Assessor's ID of map 50, block 259, parcel 916, and I believe it's Attorney McDonald.
It is. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Patrick McDonald with offices at 15 Ferry Street on behalf of the petitioner, Ming Seafood Restaurant, relative to a request for a variance for a second exterior wall sign located at the property from which it conducts its restaurant business, which is 15-23 Pleasant Street here in Malden Square. I'm going to begin my presentation by suggesting very respectfully to the board that I'm of the opinion that the board is utilizing an improper standard for review with respect to sign variances. My reasoning for that opinion is that although certainly the board has been recently granted a variance authority relative as a consequence of amendments to the ordinance, and I don't believe the ordinance amendment provides much guidance, if any, to the board with respect to the standard of review, and that therefore it appears the board has been defaulting to the conventional 40A standard for review with respect to variances, which, as we all know, is the three-pronged test about uniqueness with respect to soil conditions, topography, shape of the lot, showing of hardship, financial or otherwise, by the petitioner, and then a general finding that the variance if granted would not substantially derogate from the intent of the zoning ordinance. But the key word there is the zoning ordinance. The conventional 40A standard for review that is afforded and utilized by boards of appeal applies to variances to the zoning ordinance, but we're not dealing with the zoning ordinance when we're dealing with sign design review. The zoning ordinance in the City of Malden is Chapter 12, as we all know, but sign design review and approval is governed by Chapter 300, which is the special addition to the ordinance specifically related to sign design review. I would respectfully suggest that when considering sign design review appeals and variances related to that in the absence of any specific guidance under the statute, that the board should consider the criteria utilized by the Sign Design Review Board and, in its determination, decide if it wants to vary based on that. Those criteria are laid out in Section 3.35.4.5, and as the board would see by reviewing that, it makes no mention of any of what are conventionally associated with 40A, which is the uniqueness of the soil conditions, topography, or shape of the lot, nor hardship, although it can be said to, at least in a general sense, require that any variance not substantially derogate, not from the zoning ordinance, but from the sign design review ordinance. I'd suggest that with the exception of freestanding signs, which are undeniably structures and therefore appropriately subject to dimensional control in the zoning ordinance, that there aren't many, if any, petitioners, as is this one, someone seeking a variance relative to a wall sign or a window sign, who could ever meet the first prong of the test under 40A, which is establishing something unique about the soil conditions, topography, or shape of the lot under those circumstances. And as a consequence, no applicant could ever really meet the 40A standard for a variance, but I do believe that an applicant could conceivably meet a standard for review if it were appropriately tied to the criteria laid out in the sign design review ordinance. Having said that, of
The sign control,
the sign design review ordinance, I suggest an appropriate standard for consideration by this board would be section 3.35.4.5, which is the standard utilized by sign design review when deciding whether or not to approve a sign in the first instance. And so that's my opening statement. The board will utilize what standard it chooses to, but I think we're all on a bit of a learning curve where this is a new power that has been conveyed or conferred upon the Board of Appeals, and I just don't think that the standard 40A analysis is particularly applicable under the circumstances. And in fact, when the appeal right to the board was granted, it referred to the section under Section 12, and if you read the first section where the board is created and conveyed with certain authority under Section 12, it says, you know, this board shall have the authority to grant variance under this ordinance, meaning the zoning ordinance, Section 12. Perhaps the City Council should consider a clarifying amendment. I'm not here to tell the City Council or the board what to do, but I wanted to make that known because my argument, for the most part, is not going to be able to meet a traditional 40A standard because, again, I don't believe anyone who is arguing for a variance for a sign other than a potential freestanding sign could ever meet that first prong of the test. It's just, you're not going to have an argument regarding topography or soil condition when you're talking about a sign mounted on a wall of an existing building.
Just for my brethren here, because I know he's diligent and he's going to tomorrow be looking, what he was referencing, you can see right on the second page, chapter 12, 800-4.
great, thank you.
Yep.
Having said that, and I'm prepared to make somewhat of an argument relative to the more conventional 40A standard, although I will freely admit that I cannot make an argument with respect to this particular applicant and what I call the first prong, the need for uniqueness with respect to the soil condition, topography, or shape of the lot. That just doesn't apply here. I would say there's something in the nature of a hardship, and I know the board always likes to hear some evidence of a hardship. With respect to this particular applicant, and the board may be somewhat familiar with this, my understanding is that the sign in question, this exterior wall sign located at the front entrance, was originally intended by the applicant to be an interior sign. And it was purchased and ready for mounting when it became known to the applicant at the time that they had to restructure the entrance to the building in order to accommodate handicap entrance. So before that restaurant was reconfigured, when the total build-out was done, you used to be able to just walk in from the street. It completely fronted Pleasant Street, and now, as you know, if you approach it, there's this landing area which was created, and again, that was needed to accommodate handicap entrance, and that created now a wall surface that is now exterior that otherwise would have been on the interior of the building. So I would suggest that relative to hardship, you know, these are people who had planned to put a sign in there and then were somewhat surprised by the need to restructure the building. I'd also suggest with respect to a traditional 40A standard that this particular sign could not be considered to substantially derogate from the intent and meaning of either the zoning ordinance or the sign design ordinance. This is, by all reports, an attractive, very aesthetic sign. It is not offensive or particularly problematic with respect to the general area, of course, this being the downtown commercial area in the city of Malden. And this is, of course, one of our finer eating establishments in the city, and this adds a benefit to that commercial nature of it. With respect to the sign itself, I do take issue with the board's ruling. It found that it was not a sign of expression, and if the board is unfamiliar with the sign, and it may very well be because it's been covered by a tarp for an extraordinarily long period of time. But if you were to remove that tarp, you can see a depiction of the sign and as it appears on the wall with respect to the photographs or by virtue of the photographs that were part of the sign design review application. And it's Chinese characters. And I do not speak or read Chinese, and I rely on my client with respect to the rough translation, but I'm advised that the rough translation of those characters is good fortune, or something in the nature of that. It is not, therefore, a truly commercial sign. It does not identify the business. It doesn't even identify the nature of the business. It's an expression, and it's a cultural expression. And In Asian eating establishments, you will often see, and I've seen them, I think other board members probably have, is that there are cultural Chinese characters if it's a Chinese restaurant. I liken this sign to a sign of a shamrock at an Irish pub, or a depiction, a sign of Italy in an Italian restaurant or something. This is something that is common in the Chinese culture and very common in Chinese eating establishments. There are English language signs and there are Chinese characters. So again, I respectfully disagree with the Sign Design Review Committee's finding that this is not a sign of expression. I think it's exactly what it is, a sign of expression, because it's not a conventional commercial business sign. I'd also take a technical issue with them. The sign design does provide for exterior sign, and this issue came up a little bit in the AT&T hearing a moment ago, where you've got properties that face, have two street fronts or face two ways or streets. If you view this sign, it doesn't face out onto Pleasant Street. So it's not two signs facing out onto the same public way. This sign is, because of the alcove that's created by the restructure of the entrance, the sign does not face out onto the way, and therefore I would suggest to the board that it's not violative of that portion of the sign design statute that prevents more than one sign facing out onto the street. So my argument before this board is that I think there were, and again respectfully, that there were some deficiencies in the ruling by the Sign Design Review Committee, but I also think that as I mentioned at the outset, that the proper standard for review is not the 40A standard. I have, however, tried to make at least some argument with respect to that. But if we look at the standard laid out in section 3.35.4.5, I could represent to the board that I think this sign clearly meets that standard. With respect to section 0.1, the zoning district, existing uses in the area, general character of the area, this is the downtown business section, and this is a restaurant located in the downtown business section. This is not a sign that is inconsistent in any way with the nature of the district and the common uses and establishments within the district. Economic and business interests of the party having erected or proposing to erect the sign, I'd suggest that this is understandably in the business interest. As I said, this is a cultural expression. This is an ethnic eating establishment, and it is helpful to them to have signs consistent with the nature of the fare that they offer and quite frankly, the clientele that they predominantly serve. Aesthetic appearance, the aesthetic appearance of the sign and the overall effect. Again, I've seen the sign without the tarp. It's an attractive sign. It looks good. I don't think anybody has ever suggested it isn't a sign. And in fact, having been present at the Sign Design Review Committee hearing, it was generally acknowledged by the committee that it is an attractive sign. It looks good. And again, the aesthetic appearance in the fourth subsection. The form, the color, the materials, they're certainly consistent with the existing building front. It's not garish. It doesn't clash in any way with the decor for the establishment. 5, of course, is the fact that that's the technical requirement. But that's the point of the Board of Appeals, is that you don't go in front of the Board of Appeals unless you're not meeting a particular technical requirement. Although I, again, respectfully disagree with the technical findings of the committee on this. So, in light of all that, we're respectfully requesting favorable action by the board on the petition.
Okay. Putting aside the covered sign, covered area, as you're standing on the street looking at the building, how many signs do you think are on the building currently? Putting aside the tarp-covered one.
Well, there are 2.
2?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's how I viewed it as well.
They're kind of separate.
The building itself actually looks like there's maybe a
slight split
firewall.
between- exactly.
Yeah,
So
they occupy 2 spaces, if you will.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's 2 on the building aside from the tarp-covered one that we're really discussing.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I had a question. So you had referenced the personal expression exception. And if I'm reading it correctly, it's saying that you can assign, there's no permit required for a personal expression sign. But it also goes on to say that the sign cannot be, sign can't be illuminated and can't exceed 3 square feet. Does this sign meet those other criteria?
No, it's clearly an illuminated sign, and not having measured it, but the dimensions of the sign are contained in the packet. I'm fairly certain it's, if you square it off, because it's not a conventional rectangular or square sign, it's the two characters, but if you square off the area from top to bottom and left to right that are the maximum points of the sign, they probably exceed that dimensional reference in the sign design code.
Yeah, there's one of the pages.
The exact measurements, when squared off, I believe there's a portion of the original package that has handwritten. I think I did the handwritten measurements in there myself, quite frankly, so.
It's also on the permit.
What's that?
It's also on the permit.
Yes. Yes.
Any other questions for Mr. McDonald? Okay. Don't see a large public participation. I do have a letter to read in, which would seem to be in support of this board granting the variance. It is from Ms. Debbie DiMaria, the council president. And it's addressed to us. I respectfully ask that, that's addressed to me. I respectfully ask that you read my letter. Okay, this is her now speaking. I am in favor of the petition of Ming's Seafood Restaurant, Inc. Regarding a variance of section 3.35.9.2.1, chapter 3 of the revised ordinances of 1991 as amended of the City of Malden, sign design control ordinances regulating the appearance, size, placement in or location of signs on residential, commercial, or industrial properties at the property known as and numbered 15-23 Pleasant Street. While I commend the work that has been done in the Sign Design Review Committee, I do believe this TARP has proven to be quite an eyesore to our community, serving no purpose other than negative connotation. Our business community is very important to Malden. Continued good relations with them are imperative as we move forward. And again, that is from City Council President Debbie DiMaria. And we have Councilor O'Malley, I believe.
Ryan O'Malley, Ward 4 City Councilor. Hello again. I want to start by saying I do believe that the Board of Appeal has a very important function in city government. You guys play the common sense role. You are able to, and empowered to take and look at the black and white law and see the gray area beyond that. I think in regards to this matter tonight regarding Ming's Seafood sign, you need to look at the gray area and kind of take that into account when you're looking at this. It doesn't fall under the prohibited sign section of our ordinance. And as was stated by the petitioner's counsel, it is on an interior wall that was anticipated to be an interior sign. It wasn't until the redesign of that entryway that it became, some might think it became an exterior sign. The fact that it is sitting on the inner alcove and on the inside footprint of the building could raise the question of, is it actually an exterior sign or not? And finally, the city, through its building department and through electrical permits, actually approved the sign. So it's built safely, it was built per plans, and now we're in a circumstance where it is covered by our TARP. But even if you don't agree that those gray areas would raise to a level that this should get a variance, I think that there's even a public good reason for why this deserves to have a variance. It specifically is on our main thoroughfare. It's on Pleasant Street. And as you drive down there, it's probably one of the brightest things you see, the blue tarp. Everyone knows about the blue tarp. As Councilor DiMaria said in her letter, it's unsightly, and I do think it is a mark on our beautiful downtown. At no fault by the petitioner by any means, we required them to put the tarp on, but I think that we have an opportunity to allow them to show what is, I hope, a very beautiful sign, and from what I understand, is a beautiful sign. As the Ward 4 City Councilor, in terms of taking into account the neighborhood, there are 0 residential properties that have a direct line of sight of this sign or this property. And I think in addition to that, the message that we're sending to our business community, new businesses that have recently moved here, or potential businesses that may be moving into the city, I think we want to be able to portray that we are working with them and we have their best interests in mind. Obviously, we need to make sure that they're not being scofflaws by any means, but I think that when you look at the gray area in this particular circumstance, it definitely rises to the level of deserving a variance, and I would ask that the board vote as such. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilor. Would there be any other comments? No one else here to speak in favor, and I do not believe anyone. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? No? Okay. Would anyone choose to make a motion?
And part of the reasons that I see is that, I mean, the design of the building, and I know their attorney said that there's 2 signs out front, but I mean, the design of the building, I mean, if they had a sign that said Ming's, I don't know what that is, or if it's a seafood restaurant, we don't know what that is. I mean, this is, although it's separated, it's basically one message sign. I mean, it's Ming's Seafood Restaurant. So, I mean, I don't think there's, it's a stretch to say that those are 2 signs. They both need to be there. They approved these already to put that way. And I mean, I think that the reason that they're separated like that is because there's a pilaster that comes right down through the middle of it. You can't put one sign up. I mean, they had to separate the message of what this is.
They occupy a sizable portion.
Yes.
It's like 2 spaces.
And I don't think good fortune is advertising. I think it's if that's what it says, that's what it says, right?
Good fortune.
Good fortune, basically, right? That's just a sentiment.
So if I understand, your point is that really this is one sign versus 2.
Yeah, I mean, the style of the building necessitates, and I think that may have gone into why they decided that they were going to allow to put up that way. But I mean, it's basically, I think, one sign, one message, it's one restaurant. It's Ming's Restaurant, seafood restaurant. So I think in this case, with all those, and plus the fact that, that the fact that it doesn't bring any more information about the restaurant, the additional sign that's there on the side of the wall. I mean, it's not advertising, for sure. They're just wishing us well.
That was well put. Would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
The simple motion is, I move that we grant the variance for the sign and take the blue top off.
Would there be a second? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Blue top. Let's go take it off. Okay. That's right. Thank you. I forgot. All right. All set. 5-0. Thank you. I don't know. I'm going to ask her right now.
Did we do the,
I didn't know if she was to speak in opposition. Everyone would like to know if there's any other business. I don't see any. I just see a head shaking. So at the moment, there's just one hearing for next month. And with respect to tonight. We did our minutes, right? Okay. Would there be a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, it's something I haven't been doing, at whatever time it says, 8:20? 7:40? I haven't been doing that. We want to kill that? Yeah, that one especially right there.